Speak.
Thank you very much, Senator Kongo Mogeni. I'm very sure that your concerns about security or insecurity in my neighboring county of Namira definitely will be addressed. Remember, CS is a member of this house, or rather a previous senator, and therefore I'm sure he's able to follow up the proceedings, and we hope he will act accordingly. Senator Kinywa, what is your intervention?
Bwana Spika, ni kupongeza tu wakati ulinikosoa kusema humanoid ukaniambia haki za kibinadamu. Bwana Spika, kwa moyo huo Bwana Spika, ningekuomba kwa sababu wewe nimeona ni mwerendi wa Kiswahili, tuwe tukiendeleza mazungumzo wakati umeketi kwa lugha ya Kiswahili Bwana Spika, kwa sababu Kiswahili kutukuzwe. Asante Bwana Spika.
Asante Senator Kinywa. Ile nitakuelezea ni kwamba uweze kuileta pia mabadiliko kwa sheria za kanuni za kuendeleza ili tuweze kuitukuza lugha ya Kiswahili. Thank you very much. Senator Tobiko Peris Pesi.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I support Senator Mirad's bill on the care of the child parents. Mr. Speaker, you know, as a parent and as a leader also, it's scary to imagine the situation of children getting children. But when that unfortunate situation happens and a human being has been brought into the world, then both children, actually they may even be 3 children, maybe the father of the child and the child involved are all children. So it may be a situation of dealing with around 3 children. It's a very scary situation, but then these are human beings. These are people whose lives were still in formation, who needs to care from parents and from community and from law enforcers and from the government of the day, Mr. Speaker. And so, Mr. Speaker, I support that these children need to be given a conducive environment, be it in schools and also at home, and maybe in situations where these children don't have parents, but they have now children, maybe there should also be shelters that where these kids can be taken care of, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I do agree with you know, all the colleagues who have put caution that this does not mean we are encouraging you know, children to get babies. We are addressing a situation that may not be a normal occurrence, but that needs to be taken care of by law, Mr. Speaker. And so, Mr. Speaker, these children will need care, and it is also good to say, to take this opportunity to say that in most situations, you find where a young man, a young boy, I mean, who is still underage, is the law is used, you know, like to punitively, very harshly on the boy, who also, just like the girl, was not, you know, in a position to make proper decisions, Mr. Speaker. And so I would say that, you know, boys should not be, the law should not be applied punitively on the boy child. Both the boy and the girl may need rehabilitation, may need to be taken back to school, and the child that has been brought forth is taken care by society, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, when we were going around during the campaign time, you know, I went to various parts of Kajiado County, And I realized there are parts of Kajiado County that I saw little girls, because I'm imagining they must have been young girls. Because it cannot happen that in a whole crowd, so many women were small-bodied. For me, my conclusion was that these are young girls. And they were all having babies. They were either carrying babies on their backs or they are expectant. And it shocked me that a whole community looked like that. Babies carrying babies, you know? It shocked me, Mr. Speaker. It shocked me so much. And I'm like, how has community accommodated this? In some part of Kajiado, it looked like a normal occurrence. It looked like every young girl was carrying a baby. If not carrying, then she's expectant. Yet this is a community that we expect chiefs to be in that part of the country and should be enforcing the law and making sure that teenage pregnancies are discouraged. But to me, there was a part I really don't want to mention, but I mean, I think privately we can talk with the administration, because it shocked me, Mr. Speaker. And Mr. Speaker, it looked so normal to the members of that community. It looked like it's the order of the day, Mr. Speaker. And I wondered why we have never spoken about it. You know, Mr. Speaker, I was a constituency holder. So for 10 years, Mr. Speaker. But in my constituency, Kajiado East, I had not seen such a situation. So it shocked me to know that in some parts of Kajiado, life is very, very different. And a lot of leaders are silent about this. And that is why I thought more than ever before, maybe Kajiado will needs, a mother as a leader, as a county, as a governor, because then mothers will bring out some of these issues. There are a lot of issues that, it's sorry to say, and I don't intend to be biased, but there are many issues that male leaders will sweep under the carpet, Mr. Speaker. Because I've never heard anybody speaking about it, but I saw a huge problem in Kajiado that needs to be addressed, Mr. Speaker. And so I think the Mirage law is well-meaning. I think it is well-timed, but caution must be put so that it doesn't look like this House is encouraging, teenage pregnancies. But once it occurs because of unfortunate situations, that the child did not intend, that the child was not in control, that maybe it was out of some molestation of some kind, then the situation still has a law that takes care of that kind of situation. And so I support Mr. Speaker. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Tobiko. Senator Korir Joyce.
Yeah, thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. I rise to support the bill by Honorable Senator Mirage and the bill on the care and protection of the child, Parent Bill 2023. And I want to agree with the sentiments of my colleague senators on the support of this bill, that this bill, Honorable Speaker, will cure a number of problems that our teenagers are facing, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, the teenage pregnancy and motherhood rate in Kenya stands at 18%, which is really high, Honorable Speaker. And the reason why this is, Honorable Speaker, a number of teenagers, Honorable Speaker, lack the information about the sexual and reproductive health and rights, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I would want to say that it will be prudent for us to really provide means and ways through the national government and the county government to make sure that we have programs that enlighten these teenagers on the dangers that are within the societies that they are coming from. Honorable Speaker, these are very vulnerable kids. They don't, the Honorable Buru talked about the games, or they play some games, which I don't term it as games, Honorable Speaker, because they have very serious consequences to an extent of even sometimes affecting their future lives, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I would want to request, or the bill is trying to address the issues of inadequacy, access to services tailored to young people, Honorable Speaker. And if the county government and the national government with all their hands and come up with these programs so that these youths can access, Honorable Speaker, we will be able to cure these menace, Honorable Speaker. The part 3 of the bill, Honorable Speaker, talks about the preventions. And they always say, Honorable Speaker, prevention is better than cure. Where part 3, Honorable Speaker, 1C, that is number 6, is that the programs that the Ministry of Education is putting for the vulnerable and children, Honorable Speaker, is to assist them, or to assist the two arms of government, that is the county and the national government, in weeding out the problems or the causes that are bringing these menace, Honorable Speaker. So even before we go to the issue of the child care, Honorable Speaker, it is the mandate of us as parents to make sure that every now and then we have an open communication with our children for them to really know the dangers that are caused by the early pregnancies, Honorable Speaker. It's not only the child, we also have the diseases, Honorable Speaker, which will, I'm talking about hindering their progress in life, Honorable Speaker. So I want to say the bill is a bill that is going to cure a number of issues that have been touched by the members. And I want to say that at least if this bill is going to be approved, Honorable Speaker, we will see a changed society, and really we will see these teenage pregnancies issues being addressed. Otherwise, I support, Honorable Speaker. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Joyce, for your contribution. Honorable members, there being no other member interested in contributing to this particular bill, it ought to have been the time for the mover to reply, but unfortunately also Senator Miraj, who is the mover of this bill, is absent in the House. The reply shall therefore be deferred to the next sitting of this House, where Senator Miraj shall be called upon to reply to the bill, and thereafter the proceeding processes will continue. Clerk, let's move to the next order.
Order number 17, the Prevention of Livestock and Produce Theft Bill, Senate Bills number 12 of 2023, second reading, resumption of debate.
Senator Cherargei, you had just begun, you are moving the bill, and you have got 59 minutes remaining out of your time to move the particular bill. You may proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I've waited for this long, but I want to appreciate at least finally I have a chance to move the Prevention of Livestock and Produce Theft Bill, number 2023. So, Speaker, sir, the principle of this bill in terms of prevention of livestock and theft of produce, so Speaker, 2023 is to put mechanisms for preventing, combating, and eventually eradicating livestock and produce theft, Mr. Speaker. So, Speaker, as you are aware, this issue of cattle wrestling and banditry is rampant in the northern part of Kenya, and also parts of Rift Valley, especially North Rift. Therefore, Mr. Speaker, it goes without saying that 12% of our GDP and being line for staggering 60% of rural population depends on livestock. And Mr. Speaker, from the onset, the issue of handling cattle or livestock theft and produce has been scattered in many of the laws, like Penal Code, Branding of Stock Act, the Stock and Produce Theft Act, which I propose that they should be repealed, especially Section 278 of Penal Code Act Cap 63 laws of Kenya. The Speaker, what we are seeing, there is a continuous, the culture and tradition of many people where cattle rustling and banditry is found in North Rift and Northern Kenya used to be a cultural event as part of initiation to manhood, or to go and in courts steal the livestock and then use for dowry negotiations and payment. But this issue has mutated into a serious and dangerous criminal enterprise where deaths, theft of the livestock, and many others have been the order of the day, especially in this part of the country. So, Speaker, my heart goes out to the many victims, many families who have lost their loved ones over a period of time because of this menace that continue to be a threat to national security and continues to rob families, Mr. Speaker, of their loved ones wherever they are. So, Speaker, yesterday or the other day, somebody was killed in Baringo near a primary school as they were herding their cattle by bandits who were later pursued by the security forces, Mr. Speaker. In the northern part of Kenya, North Rift to be specific, the guns have gone silent temporarily, but we hope and believe the solution to prevent of livestock theft, banditry, and cattle rustling is to have development in those areas, which most of this is because they are remote. We need to have security roads. We need to have establishment of schools. We need to have a proper way of shared resources like water, pasture, among other aspects, Mr. Speaker. So this bill is a bit complex, Mr. Speaker, because I've tried and address a lot of aspects and try to fight this criminal enterprise of cattle rustling and produce and livestock and produce theft. And I didn't, Mr. Speaker, for the intention of the House, I've told you 60% of GDP and 60% of rural depend on livestock, be it poultry, pigs. For example, in the country, as per the population, housing, and census of the other year, we have over 18 million cattle across the country. We have 18 million sheep. We have goats, 28 million. We have camels, 3 million. We have pigs, 334,689. And of course, poultry, chicken, what you have is 31 million. This points to the 60% of GDP, Mr. Speaker. One of the life-changing, Mr. Speaker, is to branding of livestock, to ensure that, Mr. Speaker, when we brand the livestock, that identity cannot be stolen. And the bill has tried to really address that issue, Mr. Speaker. And I think it is about time that we agree as a country that let us put it in the law. We want to brand these animals. We want to ensure movement of animals or livestock are tracked. We want to ensure when they are slaughtered in Nairobi abattoirs, because the biggest threat, Mr. Speaker, has been the commercial financing of this cattle rustling and banditry, where animals are stolen and taken to Nairobi abattoirs or other major cities or major towns, Mr. Speaker, and unknowingly or knowingly, the meat that either we enjoyed at parliamentary cafeteria or even in big cities, 5-star hotels in these cities and towns in the country, could be unknowingly we are financing the ugly end of cattle rustling and banditry of livestock in the country. And I think it is high time that we track. Let us brand the animals. Let us ensure when you are moving animals from wherever you are taking them, maybe to Nairobi for slaughter, let that tracking of movement of livestock be done. Let the people who slaughter in slaughterhouses and abattoirs, Mr. Speaker, ensure they have records. And I'm proposing that before you slaughter an animal or livestock, you must maintain the records that are there, Mr. Speaker. And finally, we look at the offenses. We have tried to deal with offenses, Mr. Speaker. And that is why we are going to put identifier. That is a permanent mark or a permanent representation on livestock. And we have proposed designation or combination of numbers, codes, or sign as may prescribe under the Act. So it's like when you have your own safe where you are putting the money. And Mr. Speaker, you must put a combination of some password. So we want to create combination of unique numbers to animals. And one of the roles that we have given, Mr. Speaker, is the objects of this act, I have said, is to prevention and combating and eradication of livestock theft and to promote security and stability. Mr. Speaker, if you go to those areas, development is behind. There is no network, red network. There is issue of electricity, no water, no schools. Because the fact that there is still that insecurity, those areas, Mr. Speaker, continue to be a threat. I'm aware that the government is trying to fight issue of insecurity in those regions. Mr. Speaker, there is also aspect of registration and management of livestock by livestock owners. One of these way is branding these animals. Let us brand them so that when we are bringing them all the way from Bomet in Longisa or somewhere in Chepalungu, Mr. Speaker, or Sigor, Mr. Speaker, where I'm told there are famous artists and musicians who are removing very interesting songs, Mr. Speaker, that I'm told there are 5 gentlemen and 1 queen pin. Mr. Speaker, in that song, it's a local song. So when you are moving from Sigor, for example, all the way to Nairobi, Mr. Speaker, you should ensure there is tracking. We need regulations. And Mr. Speaker, apart from fighting insecurity, it also assists in prevention of livestock diseases like foot and mouth across the country, Mr. Speaker. We are also going to ensure there is tracking and recovery and tracing, Mr. Speaker, because if a cow moves from Kipteren or somewhere in Mosoriat or somewhere in Maralal or somewhere in Marsabit, if we come here at Dagoretti Corner where they normally, Mr. Speaker, slaughter, we can get the hide and skin and look at the number that XYZ is a cow that was moved from Eldoret or from Elgeyo Marakwet somewhere and then being taken. So it's a part of retrieving and tracing. This bill, Mr. Speaker, is also to bring corroboration. You know, Mr. Speaker, there is a thinking, Mr. Speaker, anti-intergovernmental relations. Many people have argued that agriculture is devolved, and we know that under 4th schedule. But there should be a collaboration and interrelations between those agenda, Mr. Speaker. And branding of livestock, we are giving the power of CS in charge of livestock, Mr. Speaker, to develop a standard policy on identification and movement of livestock as per clause number 4. It's also part of ensuring intergovernmental relations. It's also to establish, Mr. Speaker, this is very critical, the national database. After we have branded and registered all these livestock, Mr. Speaker, we create a national database such that when you queue XYZ on that platform, and we are happy the government has moved government services over 5,000 now, and the government is targeting 50,000 services online. You can say XYZ animal can be tracked maybe from Kajiado, Mr. Speaker, and many other areas. Mr. Speaker, it is also to ensure that there is collaboration with the security and other relevant agencies establishing mechanisms for the discernment. I know this has been a concern, especially in areas where Kenya Police Reservists or National Police Reservists has been a problem. Where in communities, when you go to West Pokot, Elgeyo Marakwet, Turkana, even in northern part of Kenya, Marsabit, Mandera, communities have been accusing each other, or the government at some point, even in Baringo and many other areas, have been accusing that they have been arming one side of the community against another. This will bring collaboration to ensure that we have discernment and confiscation of firearms and ammunition illegally held by livestock owners. This is very important because that is what the Ministry of Interior is trying to do at the moment. They are fighting over firearms and ammunition illegally held by livestock, Mr. Speaker. Also, the Ministry of which should ensure capacity building to the county governments on matters touching on identification and movement of livestock, Mr. Speaker. So these are highlights of the bill, Mr. Speaker, that tries to address many challenges, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I think also in future, you know, when you watch the Senate of US, Mitch McConnell, Mr. Speaker, they normally, I don't know, we used to have a majority leader who used to read, Senator Samuel Pogisho. In the US Senate, they normally read their moving notes, but in Kenya, under our standing orders, we are never normally around. So I'm not reading, I'm just highlighting a few comments here and there. Mr. Speaker, when you look at clause 5, because I told you this is a very complex bill, because we are trying also to address something that is complex, that is thin line between the culture and criminality, Mr. Speaker. For example, a county register of livestock, the CEC, these are functions of the CEC, Mr. Speaker, under clause 5, is to establish the county register. When I come to Bomet and meet CEC in charge of agriculture, they should be able to tell us the registration of the livestock in that area. How many cows, how many poultry, how many others, and what have you, Mr. Speaker. I don't know whether Kiptindinya is an animal, but all the animals that are there, the livestock and many others, should be quantified. Also, the CEC will develop on how you can apply registration of brands. Mr. Speaker, you also need to design and formulate strategies and mechanisms for the prevention, combating, and eradicating livestock way. So, Mr. Speaker, you should also have strategies. Because, by the way, the biggest problem, Mr. Speaker, has been when you go to West Pokot and want to dictate, want to tell us how to fight issue of cattle rustling and banditry, you are in Nairobi. You are an official from Ministry of Interior. How will you understand the terrain in Elgeyo Marakwet, or in West Pokot, or in Turkana, or in Baringo, and many other areas? Of course, we have been having a challenge, Mr. Speaker. You know, the county security technical, has been, they don't allow county governments to sit in that county security team. But we are proposing that let them sit in terms of collaboration, so that it becomes all it is like sensitizing the local community, like alternative. And you know, I know this one might not be popular. We are proposing the CEC even to give livestock farmers alternative of livelihoods. I know Senator Topiko Paris was here. I don't know whether the Maasais and others would want to abandon the issue of livestock rearing to go and maybe take care of maybe other livelihood. So the question is to change the cultural aspect. Then, Mr. Speaker, we also, when we need to do GIS tracking system, so we need the county to acquire that system, so that when there is movement of animals, nowadays, Mr. Speaker, we use GPS. If I want to know, Mr. Speaker, where you are, I will just, Mr. Speaker, just put a tracker I can know you are seated somewhere in the Senate because of the GPS that we have in phones. So we want to put trackers to the animals and ensure that we have in place. Mr. Speaker, I'm proposing in clause 6 that we have county assemblies. Mr. Speaker, I can see you are consulting on issues of Bomet. I hope all is well. Mr. Speaker, the county legislation and county assemblies, Mr. Speaker, we are giving them power. We are giving them power to now county assemblies to go and domesticate in Bomet County Assembly, in West Pokot County Assembly, in Nairobi County Assembly, because the issue of cattle rustling does not restrict itself to Northern Kenya. And this, I have told you, Mr. Speaker, we are unknowingly financing the cattle rustling in this country because of the meat that we eat in Nairobi. No one can tell us with certainty that the meat we eat is because of livestock that we are aware where they are coming from, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, another clause that I want to bring to the attention of the House, when you apply for registration and branding, you must be given within 30 days. So if I apply to CEC of Agriculture, for example, of my animals somewhere in Kajiado, you should give me or register a brand if registration has been there, Mr. Speaker. So there must be application. Clause 7 talks about certificate of registration of a brand as provided for under section 5.3 of the county executive shall issue to the applicant a certificate of registration in form or prescribed. So any certificate, Mr. Speaker, of registration, you must have it. Where the holder of a certificate claims that the certificate has been lost or destroyed, the holder of a certificate may make an application in accordance with subsection 4 to county executive. So, Speaker, clause 8, when you sell, for example, you sell a committee to transfer right to a brand to another person, there is also a process. Because, Mr. Speaker, somebody might say, if I've issued a farmer with a registration certificate somewhere, and how do I get it back? Maybe you go and buy animals in Kajiado, in Kibiko area, and you want to transfer to Nairobi. Maybe you are a owner of a botua or slaughterhouses, Mr. Speaker. You have the right to transfer that brand to another person. And the CEC in charge of agriculture at county government should approve the receipt of that application, Mr. Speaker. And therefore, certificate of transfer. So we shall be doing normal transfer the way you buy land, and then you do certificate of transfer because of sale of agreement, Mr. Speaker. So I think so that Kenyans understand, we are not saying when you have branded your animals, you have certificate of registration. When I buy those livestock, you have power to do certificate of transfer. And this is the work of CEC because, Mr. Speaker, I didn't want us to lose the sight of ensuring that we have the CEC. So also the CEC has power to cancel the same. And another unique, Mr. Speaker, in this bill is as an animal gets to 6 months, they must be branded. So I think of registered plan, and that part says to be branded with a registered plan with the livestock owner is the proprietor. And if that animal is beyond 6 months, let's assume this law comes into place, Mr. Speaker, then 3 months of the commencement of this act to be branded with a registered brand in which the livestock owner is the proprietor. Mr. Speaker, when you are branding, of course, it should be conspicuous, it should be present, and use permanent identification devices. Mr. Speaker, you see, we should. I don't know, there is a way they put, there was a time, there was a day, a bird was being shot somewhere in, it was found in Nandi. And we were told that bird came all the way from Netherlands. And that permanent identification device, Mr. Speaker, could be used as a way. Movement of livestock. Mr. Speaker, movement of livestock. And that becomes, that one I wanted to explain there, Mr. Speaker, on what, Mr. Speaker, this is a prescriptive, Mr. Speaker, so that there was a prescriptive way of ensuring removal shall be in triplicate and clearly indicates. So, Mr. Speaker, it is basic. You know, this is the first time this bill comes before the Parliament of the House. It must have certain procedures like date of the livestock, purpose for the removal, the number and type of livestock to be moved, particulars, and premises from which are being moved from. Mr. Speaker, in upshot, we are trying to kill, in quotes, and strangle the financials of cattle rustling and banditry, livestock, among others, Mr. Speaker. Even if you come today and buy a cow from my place, Mr. Speaker, or even a chicken, I must take the particulars of purchaser. It is as simple as that, Mr. Ngusia. So, if the document of evidencing of such of sale agreement, Mr. Speaker, and shall not issue a removal permit. Mr. Speaker, and when you are now doing, you must retain the removal permit. You know, there is what we call removal permit. Removal permits. So when I come, Mr. Speaker, and buy from you a cow, it must be in triplicate. So as the seller, I will retain the removal permit original. I give you a copy, then the other copy, 3 months. This is serious stuff. 3 months before removal. So that, Mr. Speaker, you know, I thought truly, how do we finish this issue of cattle rustling and banditry and livestock theft? We must be very innovative, Mr. Speaker. Every owner of an abattoir shall keep, and this is why now this is very serious. Because, Mr. Speaker, what the Ministry of Interior and other Kenyans have been telling us, that they must be kept books and records at every livestock slaughter and carcass. This is very crucial. You must keep books, Mr. Speaker, for 3 months. So if I have a slaughter in Tiebunya Trading Center in Bomet or in Gachek or in somewhere in Kapsowar, when you walk to my abattoir, I should be able to give you the list of the cows or livestock I've slaughtered for the last 3 months. And that is the point. And therefore, Mr. Speaker, I really want to say that of every and carcass before leaving the abattoir. Because most of the time, Mr. Speaker, we are being accused of facilitating. Because these people steal animals. They drive all the way to Nairobi without proper procedure. Then it becomes very hard, Mr. Speaker. It becomes, Mr. Speaker, it becomes very hard to track them into place where they are. So, Mr. Speaker, I want to say, and this I know slaughter, I don't know whether there is an organization of butchers. I don't know whether they are organization of butchers. Whether they are organization of butchers, they might find this inconveniencing. But how do we fight, Mr. Speaker? If we cannot, how do we fight if we cannot ensure that we have a process of keeping in place, Mr. Speaker? How do we ensure? I know this one, the abattoirs and the owners of butcheries. Mr. Speaker, I used to sell meat before. I used to be a butcher. But butcher of livestock, I didn't butcher anything else apart from what is legally allowed, Mr. Speaker. And I was able to be able, Mr. Speaker, to ensure that people might think we are stifling the business. We are not, Mr. Speaker. We are not stifling any business, Mr. Speaker. So the Association of Butchers and Butcheries should not find, Mr. Speaker, that we are stifling their business. Their business, it becomes very hard, Mr. Speaker. So I think, Mr. Speaker, it becomes easy, and Mr. Speaker, that is the point I really want to emphasize. I think the butcheries, Mr. Speaker, another option is that I would request the books of every carcass leaving abattoir to be kept an owner of abattoir shall indicate for a period of 3 months, Mr. Speaker. It becomes very hard from the date of receipt of livestock for slaughter or carcass leaves the abattoir. Number 15, the county executive shall designate the county executive shall designate the county executive shall designate such persons to be inspectors for each ward in the respective county for the purpose of enforcement of this act. The Speaker, we will ensure, Mr. Speaker, and you must tell us if you are an owner of butchery in Nyamira, somewhere in Nyasiongo, you must tell me, Mr. Speaker,
What's your point of order, Senator Joyce?
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. I know that the Speaker doesn't have eyes, but Honorable Speaker, I can see that there is no quorum in the room.
Clerk, could you ascertain the quorum in the House? Sergeant at Arms, could you please ring the quorum bell for 10 minutes?